Hi, this is Kate Warren, Executive Vice President here at Devex, continuing my series Careers During COVID, helping our audience understand how this pandemic is impacting the workplace and careers. While many of us, myself included, are still working from home under shelter-in-place orders, there are some parts of the world that have started heading back into the office. So today I'm happy to be joined by Laurel Ostfield, who's with the Asian Infrastructure Investment Bank in Beijing. They were among some of the first places to be impacted by COVID and heading home and moving to a remote workplace. And they're some of the first to be heading back. I think they've been heading back into the office for, I think, almost 2 months now. So I'm excited to talk with Laurel about their experience and share insights as others are considering and preparing for a eventual head back into the office. So Laurel, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you so much for inviting me, Kate. It's nice to chat with you.
Yeah, great to chat with you. So I believe it has been, you said almost 2 months now that you've started heading back into the office. So can you kind of walk me through what that's been like, maybe from the first few weeks to where you are now?
Absolutely. So we had, and just for a little bit of context, as you said, we're based in China. So we were part of that very early wave of heading home to remote work. And interestingly enough, it hit us here during Chinese New Year holiday, which for those in the West is the equivalent of Christmas holidays. I mean, everybody's gone, not in the office, but have left outside Beijing. So when we were deciding to come back, and we did close for about 6 weeks, it wasn't just a matter of people having to manage their normal commute. There was also a question of more than half of our office were abroad outside China. And we also didn't know how or when they were going to get back into China because, of course, all the travel restrictions. And at that point in mid-March, when we were coming back, it was starting to hit Europe and touching into North America. So for us, one of the big things that we had to manage was we went from a very face-to-face work culture. So all of us, there was about 350 staff based in Beijing, and we went overnight to a fully digital virtual culture. And there's pros and cons to that. I think it really forced the digital transformation to happen much faster, which I think is a good thing. And many people adopted online collaboration tools using Zoom and having meetings. But it also created challenges for us that we weren't used to in how do you engage people when you can't walk down the hall. For me, as a department head, how do I engage my team who are used to all being together, whereas now some are in the Philippines, some are in Africa, and some are in Singapore, some are in Europe, and how do we still feel, how can we have a sense of team moving forward when we're really spread out? And I think in the end, for the whole bank, there's about 46 different countries that we were spread across.
Well, yeah, and so you are used to not only being the same office, but also the same time zone. So how did you manage that, having a really globally distributed team and people were, working around the clock and covering all the different time zones?
Yeah, it was a challenge, and some people had to be flexible. For those who, I think it was toughest for those who are in North America, as you and I are talking now 12 hours apart. Some people staying up late, or some people having to get up early. But I think for me, and sort of a key learning that was really important that we applied was flexibility, and being very flexible in how we approached work in terms of how we would meet and interact with each other when things, assignments or due dates were required, really being conscientious of the fact that not only were people in different countries and different time zones, but in many cases, people were living in hotels. As I said earlier, many had gone on vacation. And so they were on vacation, and suddenly travel stopped. And suddenly maybe getting on a plane to go anywhere was dangerous. So we advised maybe just stay where you are. And for some people, that was literally staying on a beach in Thailand for a little bit longer than expected. So it was understanding that people weren't there, hadn't gone away expecting to work. So trying to accommodate, some people were in countries with very bad broadband connections. So our IT team was actually trying to help them boost their broadband access where they were so that they can continue to work. But that flexibility and was really critical because there was also people who had children they were taking care of. Even by mid-March, while we were reopening, we knew that the schools weren't reopening, even for staff who were in Beijing. So if you've got a 2 or a 4-year-old, and I have someone on my team, I have a few people on my team with small children, I mean, how much can you expect? I think Kate said you are homeschooling right now as well, but how much can you expect somebody to do a full workload when they have toddlers who require attention, and how do you allow them to balance that? So really being flexible and understanding was, I think, a really important aspect that we really considered as a key principle when we reopened the bank.
Yeah, and so I imagine it wasn't even just given that people are spread out, it wasn't everyone coming back in day one. So how did you determine who could or should come back into the office, and how to do that in a safe way?
Yeah, it's a great question. So safety was the priority, absolutely. So there were a lot of health and safety protocols that were put in place. So temperature taking at the office. So everyone who comes in, and still to this day, when you come in, your temperature is taken. We have to wear masks anytime we're around other people. So here, I'm in my office alone right now. I don't have to wear a mask, but if I'm going to go out and pick up a cup of coffee or have a conversation, I'm going to put a mask on. We don't have face-to-face meetings still, even though we might be physically here in Beijing. We'll still use Zoom or some other technology to limit as much the human-to-human contact. Our cafeteria is on takeout only, so no sitting around having lunch with friends anymore. So there are some restrictions in place. We also wanted to discourage people from taking public transit, especially still in mid-March, and still today, while Beijing is now opening up, most of China has actually gone on low alert. But especially in those early days, we actually gave a stipend that was the equivalent of around maybe like $15 US to staff every day to pay to take a taxi to come to the office rather than take public transit. So not just requiring the safety measures, but also putting the bank offered supports to help staff be safe. We gave everybody these prevention kits. So when they first came in, and I've used all the masks up now, but we had the goggles and the plastic gloves, and I don't know where my alcohol spray. So trying to do what we could to ease the burden on staff, but still trying to make sure that they stayed safe. And there were also just finally requirements from the Beijing government to have limit the capacity within the office to 50%. Now half of my team was still abroad, so I didn't have to manage that, but there were teams where more than 50% of their teams were back. So they put their people on rotation. So Monday, Wednesday, Friday, you come in, Tuesday, Thursday, and the other, you go home on Tuesday, Thursday, and work from home. So those were how we limited interaction. And we also said, if you have children who would have normally gone to school, but the schools aren't open, and you can't find childcare obviously right now, you should also stay home. Or if you have any pre-existing health conditions, like if you're considered high risk, if you're pregnant or your partner was pregnant, then we were also allowing them to continue to work from home. And we do have people here now, almost 2 months later, who they are in Beijing, but their spouse is pregnant, so they've continued to work from home just to minimize any risk there.
Yeah, still. And I imagine it's just kind of a wait and see how things progress to know when you'll be able to be fully all back in the office.
At this point, it really comes down to when the travel restrictions are going to lift and when the airlines were going to start flying again. I know people are actively watching and trying to book flights, but it's still hit and miss at this point. But when people are flying back, the bank does support them in that process because daily it can change at the airports in terms of what which country, people from what countries are allowed in or not in. Do you have to go into quarantine? Do you not have to go into quarantine? It's still quite fluid.
Yeah, and as a newer institution, you're still building, imagine, your culture and systems and processes. So has this experimentally, do you think, fundamentally shaped how you think AIIB will operate going forward, based on what you've learned from this digital transformation and ability to do work even in remote and flexible arrangements?
I think so. I think it did, for people who had not worked in an environment where working from home or remote work was common. I think it exposed them to doing it themselves, and managing teams that were remote, and learn new skills, and learned how you can ensure to support staff to get the work done even if they're not all physically in the office. Using collaboration tools that we previously didn't have great adoption on, even though they were there. Now, and even our executive committee is using Teams, for example, to share documents and to collaborate and have chats online. So these are little shifts that have happened, which I think will enable the bank to be more flexible and in how it grows in terms of developing its culture. I think the other piece that I would say that was really critical in how we manage the come back to work, which I think will stay a part of our culture, is we were really try to inject humanity into this experience. People, I mean, the whole, Maslow's hierarchy of needs, I mean, that was pulled out from under everybody over the last few months. So we really tried to think about, what do people need as people? And how can we make sure that the way we're communicating to them, that comes through into the supports that we're offering, into the flexibility that we're creating for them. And so I think as we build out our culture, this was an opportunity for the bank to demonstrate that we do put our staff first, and that they are a really high priority, and that humanity needed to come through, all the way from how the president was communicating to staff, down to the policies that we had in place. So I mentioned the stipend to support staff to not take public transit when they came back to the office. So I think that also will help shape the relationship between peers, between managers and their departments, between the executives and other levels of staff, to show that we are more of a family and we're in this together.
Yeah, and so as you are providing a lot of this understandable flexibility, you also, I'm sure, are very busy. I believe you made about 10 billion in funds available to help public-private sector groups respond to COVID-19 pandemic. I imagine this is requiring a lot of your teams to pivot their focus. So how has it impacted the work and priorities of the bank, and both wanting to recognize the need for supporting staff members who maybe can't fire on all cylinders, but also maybe needing to fire on all cylinders to respond?
Yes, absolutely. So thanks for pointing it out. We had to really pivot our investment program. We were, as we know, we're an infrastructure investment bank, and infrastructure is what we did. And we are now pivoting to invest in healthcare infrastructure. So we approved our first project in China, and it was our first healthcare infrastructure project that we've done. So it required our project team leaders to enter into sectors that they previously were not used to working in. But we got in touch with people who had, really deep experience, leveraged that, found partnerships that were gonna support us as we made these investments. And we did this because this is what our members and clients really need right now. The whole world has shifted in so many fundamental ways. And for a multilateral development bank like ours, we had to shift and adapt to that. Otherwise, we do risk irrelevance. MDBs are designed to lend countercyclically. So right now in this current environment where there isn't as much capital available, especially for the most vulnerable countries in the world, this is the time where MDBs do need to step up. And we are collaborating with the other MDBs out there to pool our resources to try to support these countries, either investing in public health infrastructure, also helping them to strengthen their pandemic preparedness going forward. And we did this because we asked, what do you need from us right now? And they said, this is where we really need help immediately. And then once we can help them navigate this current tumultuous time, our intention is to go back to investing in infrastructure and sustainable infrastructure like we were before.
Okay. And so has this impacted your hiring needs? I know you've been a quickly growing institution. Seeing that this is maybe a shorter term pivot, is this impacting the kinds of skills and experts and positions you're looking to hire? Or are you really requiring in your staff to just be able to manage these shifts, within their portfolios?
Mm-hmm. So it did impact our recruiting fundamentally. Our intention was to do quite a fair bit of hiring this year. And quite frankly, it's hard to hire someone to come work with us when they physically can't come and work with us. So we can't onboard people right now. So we are selectively recruiting this year. But what we are doing is looking to our current staff and to say, and give opportunities for people to do things that maybe they weren't doing, or if they were in a different department and we can leverage their skill set in another department who needs support, we're trying to do that. So we're giving our current staff horizontal opportunities to try new things because, as you said, we've announced sort of an up to $10 billion crisis response facility to respond to COVID. And we have a long pipeline of projects from all over the region. And we need to manage and process those projects. And we're trying to do them much faster than we have in the past because the need is so acute right now. So it is all hands on deck. And if it means that some people are learning new skills, then I think that's a great opportunity for them too.
Yeah, really. I know. I think we're all being stretched right now, right? So what do you hope will change as a result of this experience, something that you will carry forward as an institution that you've learned as part of going through this?
So I think I would come back to sort of two key aspects, which is the flexibility, the importance of flexibility, the importance of, and making sure that really is ingrained in part of our culture. And when I say flexibility, it's not just I'm allowed to work from home when I want to work from home. I think that could be an aspect of it, but I don't think that's the whole story. I think it's about the recognition that when you give people and empower people to get the job done, the right people for your organization will get that job done, and they'll probably go above and beyond when you give them that space and that trust. Because we are a new bank and we've got 350 odd people who've all come together in such a short period of time, we haven't had that opportunity yet to really solidify as a team. But I think actually this experience, even though you would think being spread apart over 46 countries would strain that, I think it strengthened the culture, and it strengthened the understanding of how much we have to support, trust, and rely on each other. So I'm really excited to keep bringing that forward as we grow. And then I also mentioned, I think, the humanity, to really put people first, and how we deal with each other, how the bank treats its staff, how managers treat staff, how peers treat each other and colleagues treat each other. I think the takeaway from so many people in the world is you keep seeing this and hearing this is we're in this together. And I think that this can really help a new organization like ours, having gone through this. It's a little bit of pardon the expression, but brothers at arms, that we have had this shared experience. And I think that by the bank being able to demonstrate how it does support its people that we will build a stronger team coming out of that. So I'm looking forward. I'm on the culture steering committee. I actually have a meeting right after this where we're going to talk a little bit about this and how do we carry forward the good things that we've learned through this experience and integrate it into our culture.
It's like the ultimate trust fall, huh? It's a bonding team experience.
Good way to put it.
Great. Well, thank you so much, Laurel, for sharing what it's been like for you all. I know many of the people and organizations we're talking to are just at the very beginning stages of thinking about what a return to work looks like. So I appreciate you sharing your perspective of what's happening from Beijing. So thank you again. I hope you stay safe and healthy as well as your colleagues.
Thank you so much, Kate. It was great to talk about this. It's been a really incredible experience. I wish everybody luck on their journeys, and I'm always available here if anyone wants to reach out to me at AIIB to talk about it a little deeper. Feel free to find me on LinkedIn. I'm happy to chat about how we approached it and what we learned.
Great. Well, thank you. Thank you for that offer. And so for more insights on how COVID-19 is impacting workplace and careers, please check out the rest of the series. If you are looking for a new job opportunity, be sure to check out all of the positions where I think we have over 4,000 posted on Devex right now, some 250 of which are actually to respond to the COVID-19 crisis. And you may want to consider even a career account, which gives you full access to all of our career advice and online events and more. But thank you, Laurel, and thank you everyone for tuning in.
Thanks, Kate. Bye.